Okay, my name is Jonathan Spalton, and this is all about how you can develop your self-study skills and also how you might like to think about keeping a lexical notebook. And if you're not sure what that means, we'll see plenty of examples. Okay, so to start off with, let's have a think. When you're learning new vocabulary, okay, how do you record it? What do you write down? What do you put in your notebook? Now, for most people, okay, their notebook will look like this. Okay, there'll be lists, often of single words, and then a list of translations in your own language. There'll often be no sentences. Now, the question is, does this help you remember? And unfortunately, for most people, the answer is no. And the answer is no because our brains are designed to be efficient, quick, and they do that by always choosing the easiest option. Okay, when our brain looks at a page with language in our own language and language we're trying to learn, the brain just looks immediately at our own language because it's much easier and faster to understand. Okay, so the problem with writing lists of words with the translation next to them is that most of the time our brains aren't interested in the words we're trying to learn because you're just going to see the translation instead. So, in order to get past that, and another important part is looking at words together, okay? Instead of looking at single words, look at words and the way that they're used together in the language you're trying to learn. Okay, so for example, we've got a little exercise for you. We've got on the left some verbs and nouns, okay, and on the right some adjectives and nouns. Okay, I want you to pause the video and just try to decide on the left which of these verbs is correct, and on the right which pairs connect together. Okay, pause the video now and see if you can do it. Okay, let's have a look. So on the left, we in English, okay, will 99% of the time use have with all food and drink. Now in other languages, for example Italian, you might take a beer, okay, or drink a beer. But in English, although you can say drink a coffee, it's not natural and it's not common. Most people will say have a coffee, have tea, have dinner, have lunch, have a sandwich, have a meal, have every time for food and drink. What about the adjectives and nouns on the right? Well, you can have an old recipe, okay, like the picture here, the old-fashioned Christmas candy, okay. Stale bread is bread that is hard, yeah, so if you leave bread for a long time, it's difficult to eat. A rotten apple is when fruit goes bad and you need to throw it away, often it smells, okay. And then milk goes off, yeah, so you can either use this as an adjective, it's the milk is off, or the milk has gone off. Okay, so we use different adjectives for different types of food when they're old and not good anymore. Okay, how well did you do? Did you get all of them? Maybe, but this is a really good example of ways that you can record, whether it's verbs and nouns together, whether it's adjectives and nouns together, because this is the way that language is used. Okay. Another thing that helps us, that's very useful when we're learning a language, is this Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. Okay, the name is not important. What is important is that we forget things very quickly. Okay, Ebbinghaus was a scientist who was interested in the brain a very long time ago, 1885. Okay, but more recently, in 2015, researchers redid his experiments and found the same information. And it's this idea. It's about the percentage or the amount of information that you retain or keep in your brain over time. Okay, so often the first time we learn something, we forget most of it, like 90% of it very quickly. If we review it again, we retain a little bit more. And if we review it again, we retain even more. And if we review it again, we retain much more. So by reviewing it multiple times, this helps us to retain the information and keep it. Okay, So this is really useful because it tells us what we need to do. It tells us we need to review language again and again, okay? It tells us that we can personalize it. So this is interesting. We remember meaningful information better. So a really good example, you can probably remember one of your first lessons in a foreign language, whether that was English, whether it was French, Spanish, German, and probably the first time you got a dictionary, you looked up the bad words, okay? You can probably still remember the bad words because they're meaningful to you, or certainly they were meaningful to you when you look them up, okay? Whereas many, many other words that you have tried to learn in class and studied have gone, okay? It's also important to challenge our brains to work hard. Yeah, if we go back here, one of the reasons our brains look at these new words, we're not doing any real work. We're not having to remember. We're not having to build these connections because our brains take the shortcut. When our brains have to try to think back and remember, and what was it? Oh yeah. The more often we do this, the stronger the connections get in our brain. Okay. So let's have a look at this student. This is a British student, so they already speak English, and they were learning Slovakian. Okay. Now, have a look at their notebook. It doesn't matter if you can't read Slovakian, you can notice straight away some of the things that they're doing in their notebook to try to help them remember the new language. Pause the video and just make a list of the techniques they've used. Okay, pause it now. Okay, so what we can notice straight away is that we've got new words and they're highlighted in sentences. So they're using collocations and they're using language in use and it's contextualized. It's not single words. They're forcing themselves to make sentences, which means they're combining their knowledge of the vocabulary that they're using with the grammar structures as well. So it's all sort of coming together. Another thing that you can probably guess is that they've personalized it. Yeah. So this is, even if you just look at these words at the bottom, always, don't know, because, already, joy, delight, horribly. This is probably about their weekend or about their life. Okay. Making it personal makes it much easier to remember because it's meaningful to the students. Okay. Repetition increases connection speed, as I was saying before. So forcing yourself to make sentences, forcing yourself to write a journal, for example, you're going to use the same structures and the same vocabulary again and again and again and again. And each time you use it, along with the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, we're going to forget a little bit less. So we're going to remember more and more and more information. Okay. Our brain is a bit like a map. Okay. Every time we've got a new word or new vocabulary, we've got a new place on the map and we need to make a new path. Yeah, the more we use the path, the stronger and faster it becomes. So we go from a path to a road to a highway, yeah, to a motorway, and they're getting faster and faster and faster connections. Okay, another reason why often with our second language, we've got lots of words that we use all the time that we can remember quickly. And then we've got a lot more language that we have to spend more time thinking about to remember. Okay. This is one of my exam students. Okay, they were preparing for the Cambridge Advanced Certificate exam. Okay, and she had a lovely notebook or lexical notebook where she kept and recorded language that was important that she was trying to remember. Okay. Pause the video and think about this question. What techniques has this student used to help her remember the new language? So we looked before and we noticed some. What else? What other techniques have we got? Pause the video now. Okay, so this student has done lots of different things. For one, they've used pictures. So it's not just text on the page. It's sort of prompting the brain to remember. Oh yeah, okay. They're providing examples and alternatives. Yeah, so I have a few friends, which is positive, versus I have few friends, which is negative. Okay. She was singled out for special praise. Great. She was singled out for insults. Ooh, not good. Okay. We've got highlighting, so we're using color, again, drawing your attention, noticing the positives, the negatives, and you can even notice over here, they use the same color system for the positives over here and over here. So it's just building those connections in the brain, okay? They're using labels and symbols, whether that's, positive, negative, noun, verb, etc. Okay, and key, there's no translation. So when the student is going through and reading her notes, her brain has to work really hard and actually think, what was this in my language? What was this? And that extra work is helping her to consolidate and helping her to review much better, more effectively. Okay. This are a couple more pages. Again, we can see color. We can see it's organized this time by theme or topic. So these are all ways of describing different places: bright and cheerful, neat and tidy, dark and dingy. Again, we've got the color scheme happening. Multiple collocations, so a variety of adjectives here with these nouns. So or adverbs and adjectives: tastefully decorated, newly decorated, richly decorated, brightly lit, dimly lit, softly lit. Yeah. So this was Marianne's advice. Marianne was a student, and I asked her when she stopped studying with me to write some advice for my future students. And this is the advice that she wrote. Read through and have a think, which advice is most useful to you? Okay. So pause the video and read now. Okay. So lots of advice here, and again, very much repeating the things I've said. So very much at the end, don't write anything in your own language, okay? Use color, use pictures, make it personal, keep it interesting, yeah? Try to substitute words, give yourself alternatives. All of these are ways that you're going to learn how these words connect together in multiple ways, okay? Now, at this point, most students will say, oh, but this takes so much time. It's so boring. It's so time consuming. Now, time is actually one of the things you need to spend if you're going to learn a language. The more time you spend actively thinking in English, the stronger and faster the connections in your brain. Okay, spending a few hours a week in class is not enough to develop language skills quickly, and most teachers will expect you to be doing extra work outside of class, reviewing, revising, repeating the language, the lexis, the vocabulary, the grammar that you're doing in class. Okay, so it's worth thinking, what can we do to increase the amount of time we spend actively using English? Okay, just pause the video here and try to think, what else can you do? Okay, did you get many? 2 or 3 ideas, maybe 4 or 5? Okay. So a lot of people talk about reading, and reading is definitely one of the best ways to improve vocabulary, but there is a big but here, okay? It can be stressful and frustrating. Most people choose books that are too difficult, okay? Most people never finish their first book in a foreign language, second language, and not everyone enjoys reading even in their own language. So if you are going to read, it's important to choose books at the right language level, okay? Graded readers are designed for all levels of English, whether that's a complete, easy start, beginner, okay? And then we've got sort of beginner, elementary, pre-intermediate, intermediate, upper intermediate, all the way to advanced. And you can see how many head words there are. So going from 200 to 300 at the lower level, up to 3,000 at the advanced level. Research shows we need to understand 80 to 90% of vocabulary to read fluently, i.e. read quickly and enjoyably. Okay. Another option to think about, as well as graded readers, is familiar stories. So especially once you've reached, B1, going on to B2, B2+, you can start reading books designed for native speakers, but probably not you know, the most challenging, sophisticated, classic literature books, okay? For example, for me, when I was learning Spanish, I really enjoyed reading children's books. And especially I read lots of Roald Dahl books. So George's Marvelous Medicine became La Medicina Maravillosa de Jorge. Yeah, because I'm familiar with the story already in English, when I meet unfamiliar words in Spanish, I can guess the meaning. Yeah, and that's true whether they're books you've read in your childhood or whether they're books you've read as an adult. Maybe Sherlock Holmes is very common. Harry Potter, whether you are familiar with the books that you've read or the films. Yeah, so there's lots of examples. You know, the superhero movies. You can find graded readers, or you can attempt perhaps sort of books for young adults or for children in a foreign language, and it becomes more enjoyable and more successful. Okay. Useful to think about what else we can read. Obviously, we need to choose what is the most interesting. Okay, if you're trying to read a book that's 500 pages long and you're not interested, your motivation is going to be a problem. Okay. Also, we're thinking about newspapers and magazines are not written for learners, so they use a lot of sophisticated language, a lot of idiomatic language, and they can be very difficult. However, choosing magazines that are about a topic you're really interested in, so whether that's sports magazines, football magazines, music magazines, yeah, hobby magazines, these kinds of things often more achievable because you are interested and you're already familiar with a lot of the specialist language already. Okay, as I mentioned before, we've got books aimed at young people, whether that's Harry Potter, Hunger Games. Again, sort of B2 plus level is good, a good level to try that sort of things. There's also graded articles. If you're not interested in reading a whole book, the BBC has lots of graded articles designed for learners. Yeah, and if you go to bbc.co.uk/learningenglish, they've got lots of good materials there. Other things like comics and graphic novels, and there's lots of different websites. Here's one I found just by Googling, In English with Love. It has a blog which suggests some different comics that are useful for learners to start with. Okay. But of course, we can do more than just read. You know, if you think what else we can do to increase the amount of time we spend actively using English, you probably also thought of things like watching films, okay? Films, shows, YouTube, and think about whether or not you use subtitles, okay? So one thing, especially when you're learning and developing your confidence, I would recommend you to have the English audio and English subtitles, okay? Now, having both of them is just going to help you develop both, because the subtitles only stay on the screen for a very short time. So it encourages you to read quickly and you develop your reading speed, okay? But also you're listening at the same time, but there's just a little bit more support if you're struggling just to listen. Okay. Lots of other things here, okay? Whether it's listening to radio, to podcasts, whether it's language apps on your phone, okay, whether it's lyrics, you know, and especially if you're very interested in an English musician or English group or band, lyrics training is very good, and you can choose the song, you can choose the level, and it will delete some of the words, and you have to try to listen and complete them. Things like changing the language on your phone or changing the language on your social media accounts, whether you use TikTok or Facebook, you can change the language settings inside the app, okay? Other things people enjoy doing, conversation partner or a club that you can join if there is one in your town. Computer games can be good, but obviously, you know, you don't want to just learn English about how to kill people or how to shout at people or how to be in the military or, you know, car racing. So there's a limit to how useful some of the language is, but, you know, good practice. And things, you know, going back to the example we saw at the beginning, keeping a journal. Writing is a really, really good practice. Just a little bit every day will force you to sort of practice the most common types of vocabulary and grammar. But big problem, it needs to be fun, okay? If it's not fun, you won't do it, okay? And the level needs to be achievable. If you're a beginner, Don't try and watch Harry Potter in English. Yeah, don't try and watch Game of Thrones in English. It's too difficult and it won't be fun. Okay. Something else that you can do that's really nice, if you have a TV show that you really love, you can note down expressions that you find in these shows. So, for example, Big Bang Theory, very popular. Okay, this was a scene where Sheldon is talking to a group of people about what it takes to succeed in theoretical physics. Really nice expression. Okay, we can take that to have what it takes, and we can look at examples. Okay, so there's a really useful website, Scale. Okay, the web address is here. It's free to use. You can type in an expression and it gives you lots and lots of example sentences. So here, have what it takes, and we've got lots of sports. Farrell has what it takes to get Boston back to the playoffs. Okay, so this is probably NBA. You're uncertain about whether you have what it takes to be alone. Okay, do you have what it takes to analyze seasonal demand changes in combos? So this kind of question is often used to ask, are you good enough? Are you skilled enough? Do you have enough experience to do something? Yeah, and we can notice as well the pattern. Yeah, so after each of these have what it takes, to get, to be, to analyze, to flip, to be, to work, to go, to stand, to get. Okay, so we can identify very quickly that the pattern we need to use with have what it takes is to infinitive. So we can start with the main example, to have what it takes to succeed in theoretical physics. I could change that topic to have what it takes to succeed in architecture, to have what it takes to succeed in life, to have what it takes to succeed in professional football. Okay, or I can change the verb to have what it takes to learn, to have what it takes to learn English, to have what it takes to learn how to play guitar. Yeah, noticing these patterns, making examples, personalizing them for you and recording them in a notebook, really, really good ways of absorbing, developing and learning new expressions. Okay. So the final question for you, do you have what it takes to learn English? Hopefully some of the ideas in this talk have helped you, give you some skills and some ideas and some techniques of the things that you can do to help you self-study and take notes.